Oh, that looks absolutely lovely, that, doesn't it? You gonna put an egg on it? He's put an egg on it. Oh. Oh.
Try some veggie sausages, please.
No.
On a roll.
No. Disgusting.
Hello and welcome to Haunting Button House, a BBC Ghost podcast, a podcast recapping and reviewing the BBC series Ghosts. I'm Luke.
And I'm Tash.
Prompt today. How are you doing today?
I'm so tired.
I know, we're recording this quite late, just to be behind the scenes, as we've just had to cram a lot in today. Well, you've had to cram in a lot today, to be honest.
Yeah, but it's done now. And it's very warm in here, which is nice.
Yeah, we actually have a working boiler again, which is good.
Thank you to Chris, who I'm sure doesn't listen to the podcast.
Have you been since the last episode?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Don't think we've done that much, really, have we?
Not really. It's been quite a week, really, I suppose, isn't it?
Apart from today.
Apart from today, when everything has just decided to hit
I think
fan.
the problem is, classic Tash is leave everything until one day and just have one really stressful day.
Have a break right before you press record.
Yep. But yeah, so I don't think much has happened. We had a question for the and put it out to the listeners, I suppose. A question from Kelsey, who we do not know. Joking. Hi, Kels. So Kelsey says, if ghosts can walk through walls, why don't the plague ghosts come out from the basement? So we know that Kelsey mentioned that they do come up in one episode, but then they go back down. The only thing I could think of was they just really like it down there. Yeah,
I think it's either they like it down there or they're kind of... the sadder answer is they're kind of shunned downstairs, you know what I mean? Like, maybe people make comments about them when they're upstairs, I don't know, so maybe they stay downstairs.
I don't know, I can't see. I feel like the ghost would be welcoming. I don't know, it's not really discussed, is it, why they're kept down there? Maybe it is, we've just forgotten, and it's going to come up in an episode.
It could be, because the amount of things that we forget from this series is abundant, I think.
I forget even when it's happened in that episode. So yeah, that's what Kelsey asked. So maybe if anybody knows, they can let us know, and then we can let Kelsey know.
Yeah, we'll bring it up on here so everyone can know. I guess we might as well just get into this episode, haven't we?
Yeah. So, Series 1, Episode 4, Free Pass. So, I think I didn't really remember this episode.
No, and I mean, spoilers for our thoughts of it. It's kind of because it is kind of like...
Yeah,
not forgettable, but like just there, I guess. It doesn't stand out, you know what I mean?
I just really felt like it was just a repeat of the previous episode.
Yeah.
Where it was exactly the same thing that happened. It was just TV crew instead of the building people, the builders.
Yeah.
So I was a bit like... And I do feel like that might be just how I feel anyway, like watching it. Because I was like, you know...
I think it's one where they kind of just have the format down now. So it's like, okay, they've got the format, something happens, and, you know, it's the juggling between the ghosts and the humans. It's just, with this one, there's nothing kind of special to sort of stand out. Again, should probably save all this to the end.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So, the episode starts, and Alison is making her breakfast, and the ghosts are like marvelling at the snap, crackle and pop of her Rice Crispies, which I thought was quite sweet. It's kind of like something really simple that probably we take for granted.
Yeah.
But they were like, ooh.
That it's actually has some kind of effect just for your eating.
Yeah. I liked how Mary was like, it's the little people that are like shouting because they're drowning in the milk. I was like, oh.
It comes back up later as well because she's like, they're it's okay, you can eat them now. They're all
they're all dead.
So Which would you prefer, dead or alive Rice Krispies?
I don't know. I like them crunchy.
Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah,
I don't like a soft,
soggy rice pudding. No,
rice pudding.
Rice Krispies.
So I kind of felt like Alison gave off vibes that she was a bit fed up with the ghosts. But I imagine like every day,
just there. Yeah, especially some of the ghosts. They can be a bit. Some kind of just are there, just commenting. But I imagine Kitty is quite much like sometimes like.
Yeah, I don't know. I quite like her.
Oh yeah. Like I like the character, but I imagine if you hadn't got used to her yet, she'd sort of be a bit much. You know what I mean?
So it cuts to us seeing Mike at the table too, and he's kind of like oblivious that the ghosts are there, and I quite like it when they do that cut between Alison's perspective and then Mike's perspective, because it kind of explains how that's how like normal people would be like viewing the situation, where like we can obviously see the ghosts and we hear what they're saying and why Alison's reacting in the ways that she does. But then we hard cut to like Mike's sort of view of it, and it's just, you know, he probably doesn't really know what's going on.
It would be her talking to herself essentially. Yeah. I like the bit as well where he tries to have a conversation. I don't know if you've noted it down, but where he tries to have a conversation with the ghosts, knowing that they're there, but not really knowing what to say, so kind of just gives them a fact about cornflakes.
I like how so he says, Robin comes in shouting "Red Man," and Alison obviously knows that it's the postman that's coming. And then Mike says cornflakes were invented to stop people from touching themselves. And Julian says never did like cornflakes.
Yeah, I liked his response.
Yeah. And then we see Alison opening the post, and they've got a lot of bills. And she advises us that someone is looking for a house to film a new drama in. And then the opening credits start.
Yeah, kind of just the setup of the episode.
Of the whole episode, yeah. So the next sort of scene is Alison showing... I wrote producers, maybe around the house.
Yeah.
I think although later on we realise that the person that she's showing around is the director.
Yes.
Because that's Petra. So showing them around the house, and she's getting like the historic facts from the ghost. So we learn that the house is from the 15th century, so 1469, I think she said.
Yes. Yeah.
But the facade is mid 16th century. So we're kind of like learning things about the house through the ghosts. Fanny is persistent that Alison tells her that the house is the finest in the county, and Alison ends up looking a bit weird. I think it goes back to that, like, kind of interesting when we see Mike's perspective, because we know why Alison's reacted in the ways that she does, but obviously not everyone does.
Also as well, I think it shows the differences between how people present themselves in time periods. So like in Fanny's day and age, you probably would pride yourself and talk about how good your house is, but now we'd probably see that as a proper like brag, you know what I mean? Like, you'd be like, I don't want to say that.
Yeah. So the captain is not sold on having the film crew and actors in the house, and Robin frightens Alison for no reason. Like, he just, I don't know why.
I mean,
why did he do that?
Doing that for the last few episodes, but yeah, it just seemed like he just did it for randomly at this point. But I like the captain in this part where he's listing out all the things that they're going to do. You know, going to bring layabouts and all this stuff that he says. But it's that typical like TV thing where it's somebody who kind of wants something, but says, oh, it's like a bad thing. Like, he's like, oh, they're going to be all here topless and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, I quite like that.
I thought it was interesting as well as they're like walking through the house that I think you mentioned maybe in the last episode or maybe the episode before that like we don't know what the rooms are called, and she said that room that like I think we consider as like their main living room is the banqueting hall, or would have been the banqueting hall, and that Fanny said that Henry VIII dined in the house. And Humphrey lets us know that he ate the swan.
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't know people ate swan.
I think back in the day, probably, yeah. Nowadays, you can't these days.
They're endangered.
They're endangered.
They belong to the Queen.
The Queens,
or King.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or King.
Well, they do.
Yeah.
Belong to the King. So Thomas picks up Humphrey's head.
Yeah.
And ends up booting it across the room in excitement that the period drama is being filmed is Regency.
I like this sort of acknowledgement that ghosts can interact with each other. Like, you mean, like
because they can physically pick him up.
Yeah, like they can't interact with like anything else, but ghosts they can. So I thought it was interesting.
I guess it kind of depends on what. I was going to say what spirit level you're on, but like that's it. That doesn't.
They do. Didn't one of them says that because it's later on, isn't it? When it's a spoiler for much later on, but one of the ghosts isn't here anymore. Keeping it as vague as possible for anyone who's not seen it. There's an explanation to the different levels, I think, of like to try and like make them feel better or something like that.
I can't remember.
So, yeah, or it might be in the book. I'm sure I might be getting mixed up with something that I've read or watched, but I don't know. Yeah. Maybe they're all.
So the producer, I'm gonna. She's a director, I think. I'm gonna flip between the two because I've written down producer and I'll forget it. But she advises that they'll be there for a few months, and Alison asks how much they will get, and the producer confirms 3,000, and then they realise that that's £3,000 a day, which is quite a lot of money.
To be fair, yeah.
The producer warns it's quite intrusive with lots of personnel around the house, but Pat doesn't seem to mind that. He's like quite looking forward to having people around. I think that says more about Pat, really. He just likes to have, just
a lot going on.
Yeah.
I quite like as well this bit where they kind of say, "Oh no, it's fine. It's only the two of us," and then it pans out and you see all the ghosts behind them. I thought that was quite a interesting sort of shot, anyway, just to see them all.
Yeah. So the producer's worried about if the house is structurally safe, but Alison and Mike say it is, and that they need the money, don't they, really?
Yeah, pretty much.
She says they're looking at another house nearby, but it's a big family, and that's when Alison advises that it's just the two of them, so they're quite flexible. But obviously we know that there's more than two of them.
Yeah.
So the film crew descend on the house. The captain's quite impressed with the camera equipment. I guess it's similar to like a weapon, maybe?
Yeah, I thought it was just the military precision of it all, because they're all like, he thinks they're all going to be artsy, like people who are just like, but they're like, following a schedule, and then later on when we see the director is like commanding people. It feels like a military thing, I suppose.
Yeah, it's I suppose I guess putting like lenses on a camera does feel a bit like you're like putting a gun together or something.
Or building,
So I noted here how Alison is stuck between, like I've kind of said it before, like the two worlds of like the real life and then the spirit world. So Pat is impressed with the food van, as wouldn't we all be?
I love commentary where he's like, "Oh, you're going to put an egg on that?" And he's like, "Oh, yes." It's like he's watching sport. And then he's
not very impressed by veggie sausages.
No, I feel like he's very much like a man of that era. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think like bacon and egg is quite a camping food. Not that he's just like camping, but like that kind of thing. So, and I guess if you couldn't eat food, if you can't eat, but you used to eat and you know how good food is,
then you can just admire the food from a distance.
Oh, but it'd be so hard.
I guess like a lot of things with a ghost, it's constantly just watching other people live their life, which is quite sad, really.
Yeah. So Mary is looking at the wigs, and then she gets that yucky feeling when a hairstylist walks through her. And then obviously we know that when someone walks through Mary, they get a smell of burning. And the hairstylist says, have you left your tongs on, Tina? Because obviously she can smell
the burning,
her. Thomas is not impressed by the Regency decor that has been brought into the house. And Mike is concerned that there are only supposed to be 15 people in the room based on the survey, and with the equipment being heavy, this might cause some issues, which
feels like a grim thought, doesn't it? That,
Robin is pretty miffed when one of the film crew ruins his game of chess with Julian, whilst Julian tried to take the paper to look at the GGs. So Alison and Kitty are impressed with the actor that has come on set, which we later learn as Toby Nightingale.
Which Thomas also... so I guess we see Mike is a bit upset when he finds out, but Thomas initially is upset as well, because he's... Well, there's a guy who's dressed up exactly like him who Alison's fawning over.
He's like, what?
Yeah.
So Thomas is a bit put out when Alison says that he is hot. And then he exclaims that he looks preposterous.
Yeah, when he looks exactly the same. I like when they say that he's hot, that Kitty says he does look like he's got a lot of layers on. She's just incredibly innocent. Yeah.
But then she's well in there when they start talking about the bedroom scenes. So we learn from Mike then that Toby Nightingale is Alison's free pass.
Yeah. Do we have to explain that for anyone out there? Or?
Julian, I say, Julian.
What do you want? I'm terribly busy.
You wouldn't happen to know what a free pass means? Something Michael said.
Ah, yes, Samantha Fox was mine. I do hope she's still modelling. Very talented lady.
Alison's is this actor fellow. What does it mean?
Well, it's a sort of clause in a marriage contract, a named exception to the rule of monogamy. Sometimes there's a whole list of people with whom one can enter into Congress without consequences.
My God.
Margot had 3 of the gladiators on her list: Wolfe, Cobra, and John Fashanu.
You mean to say that this player, this minstrel, is allowed to bed fair Alison?
He's her free pass.
So Mary, then it cuts to Mary and Pat. And she says, "What are they feeding the metal cow?" And Pat corrects her that it's actually a camera. And she asks, "Is the bit his mouth?" And he's like, "It's his eye."
Yeah, I quite like Mary's transformation in this episode. She goes on quite a journey from somebody who doesn't understand how a camera works to basically directing the piece later on.
Yeah. So they begin to actually film. And the captain and Alison are enjoying watching Toby Nightingale at work, but Thomas has other ideas. So the actors are acting, with the crew, Alison, Mike, and the ghost watching on. We see the cracks in the floor at that point begin to show, and we know that likely the floor isn't going to be able to hold the weight of everything. So I think all through the episode they're kind of like, there's more than 15 people in here. That equipment is quite heavy.
Do they... Does Alison and Mike know where the weak part of the floor is as well? Because, do you know later on where Alison is going to Julian, she seems to go around that red mark. I don't know if they know where it's weak, so I don't know.
Yeah, possibly. So we see that the floor is beginning to crack, so we can see under on the ceiling of the below room, and the producer cuts the scene, or director cut.
It's the assistant director, the guy who the captain is quite fond of. Yeah,
he's assistant director.
He's the assistant director.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Kitty is intrigued about what will happen next, and Thomas is asking about Byron. So I put a note here actually. That Matthew Bainton, who plays Thomas, also played Lord Byron in Drunk History UK.
I also had the same note as well. Did you get that from IMDb?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I thought it was quite funny. Yeah, because he basically finds out, because they mention that it's Byron, and then he finds out that it's a film is it a film or a TV series? I'm not sure what.
The film, I think.
I think it's a film. But yeah, they basically find out that it's about Lord Byron, who Thomas is... he has a few choice words for. That he's his nemesis, basically, isn't he? But yeah. We don't really get any explanation as to why. He kind of just alludes that he stole some of his stuff, didn't he? Or something like that.
Yeah.
I can't really remember.
Do you know, it made me realise a lot of what Thomas says when he's on his little rant. I don't really know what he's saying. I'm just if I was there, I'd just be nodding along and yeah, let's sound that. It sounds good.
It reminds me of, and especially in this later on. So later on, he reminds me of, do you know, I'll come back to that bit because there's a scene that brings it up. But earlier on, and when he's like this and he goes in his rants, do you know people you meet in like university or in college or something who are like, I'm so special because I've watched, I don't know, like a French film once or something like that. And he reminds me of that, like somebody who has got a little bit of knowledge, but that's dangerous, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I feel like he's quite showy and over the top, as we see. But
yeah. So they're trying to film, and they say that they can hear like a radio in the background. So Alison goes to investigate where that is, and we find Julian in the kitchen with the radio, listening to the horse racing. And he's very annoyed when Alison turns it off. But he advises her that he has a bet on.
Sorry, Julian, they can hear it on set.
No, actually, this is important. I need to... Don't do that, I've got a bet on.
You've got a bet on?
That's what I said.
You can't bet, you're dead.
All right, don't rub it in. It's a sportsman's bet with myself. Ooh, hold on a minute. You could put a bet on for me.
You haven't got any money, you're...
Dead, I know. You just said that, I get it. But you could keep my winnings. Maybe buy yourself a pretty little dress, perhaps some makeup, make yourself look nice. I really believe you have it in you, Alison. Just need a little bit of help, that's all.
Wow.
You're welcome.
Just keep the radio off, please.
Will do. Mystery Queen, 10 to 1.
So Alison then goes back upstairs. As you said, she kind of like creeps around where we think that weak point
it has like a red mark. I don't know if they put
I think
that
that's
there.
for the actors, though.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
So she goes back upstairs, but then Julian manages to put the radio back on. So she goes down again, and he tells her that it's an infringement of his rights. So she tells him to write to his MP.
I love his response where he's like, oh, you've actually got me there.
So filming continues, and Robin continues to mess with the lights. So we know that he can do that, can't he? That's one of his things he can do.
I feel like he's kind of throughout the last few episodes or the first few episodes, like he's quite wise, but he's also quite petty. Like if somebody does a slight thing to him, he like tries to get him back, like doing the electric and stuff like that. So yeah,
I like the look he gives when he's like annoyed.
Yeah.
Or like his he's got that petty like look.
He looks like. Do you remember the illustrations for Horrible Histories? Like the drawings on the cover. He looks like the caveman from the Horrible Histories, like drawings, and like
full circle, isn't it?
Yeah, he looks like he has like he brings his like brow down and everything, and it just looks like that. But yeah,
classic caveman.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, Robin's messing with the lights, and Alison ends up distracting the actors by trying to sort of like, no one can see what I'm doing, but stop
for the benefit of everyone else. Tash is waving her hands.
Trying to like stop or deter Robin from like messing with the lights. Alison keeps like randomly screaming.
I think she's just like frustrated with Robin and Thomas, isn't it?
Yeah,
well?
it's a bit of everything. I think. Like, I mean, she needs to learn to just like, you know, keep it cool.
But I imagine you forget that they're ghosts and other people can't see them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Until somebody calls you out on it, or like looks at you funny, and then you're like, oh yeah, they're not meant to know that they're there. So, it's kind of like when we were watching it, obviously, because it's just people. Like you'd probably forget, but. Is this the bit where Thomas comes in doing his like rant as well, or is that later on? I can't remember.
I don't know. I put that Mary, they're watching it back, like what they've just recorded, and then Mary thinks that the camera playback is witchcraft, and she put their souls be captured in the window, which I thought was quite good. So Alison has a chat with Toby, and he seems to like people telling him how good of an actor he is. And he says that when he's playing a blind person, he really got to understand the condition by living with blind people and wore a blindfold. And he said food never tasted so good, but I've kind of heard that when you lose one of your senses that the others heighten, so I can kind of...
I can see that. He does come across a bit of a toss. He's quite like all about like how he what am I trying to say here? How he's lived the experience of a blind person by just being blinded for like a week or something like that. He's like really vapid and like not.
It's kind of disrespectful, I suppose, in
Yeah,
a way, isn't
yeah.
it, really?
Yeah.
Mike is constantly worried about the floor and how many people it can hold, so they both decide, Alison and Mike both decide to go outside. And then Pat tries to explain to Mary how a camera works.
Harry, can you hurry with that light, please?
So, metal cow remembers what it sees.
Through its one eye.
Yeah, and it sends the memories through the cables... Worms, if you like, to the little window.
Where the tiny peoples dance the memories.
Yeah, if you like.
So Robin is still messing with the lights, but Kitty just wants them to hurry up and get to the bedroom scene. Thomas then explains to us why he's so vexed. So this is his rant, I suppose. The film they're making is called Life of Byron, and he explains Byron was his greatest foe, is what his words, I think that was. So yeah.
I like in this how obviously the two actors are acting their scene, but he's essentially acting out his own solo scene amongst them, you know what I mean? At the same time, like he's like using like theatrical theatrical words sounds like not the right thing, but you know what I mean? Like he's like putting on a performance essentially of how annoyed he is by all this, but that's basically Thomas through and through, isn't it?
I like how he says Wazzock.
Calls him
I'm going to say
Wazzock.
something else then.
Yeah.
And Kitty asks what it is, and he responds, Pat says it. And Pat kind of looks a bit like sort of mischievous. I thought it was clever in the episode when obviously how they filmed it or edited it, in that I think one clip we are looking sort of in the foreground, we've got the camera and we're looking through like that screen where the director probably looks at, and all we can see is the two actors on screen. But then in the background, which like we can see that's what's being filmed, like we can see Thomas, but he's not obviously on camera.
He's so, it's kind of like
I thought that was like a clever way of like, again, sort of like splitting that what we can see when we can see the ghosts, and then what everyone else can see when they can't see the ghosts. So it just kind of sort of solidifies that a bit.
Which kind of, it again, when Alison is like randomly screaming and stuff like that, you can kind of understand because it's just chaos, like when you can see them. But obviously to everybody else, it's just like, what is her problem, I suppose.
So Toby asks to run his lines with Alison. But Fanny overhears and thinks it's real. And then Julian is like wandering the grounds trying to find a radio. And he finds one with the hairstylists who also have a bet on. I thought that was interesting.
I thought, watching this, I felt like, obviously, if he wasn't dead, they would probably get on, these two. Like, they seem to be like, you know, like into horse racing kind of, but they kind of had that same kind of, she was quite blunt. Blunt, brunt.
So then we see Fanny confronts Alison about her free pass, Toby. She says she's on a sinful path and will not have her sullying the good name of the family. All while Alison tries to tell her that she was only helping Toby with his lines.
Again, I think Fanny's putting on a bit of performance as well. It's again
very dramatic.
Yeah, really dramatic. A lot of the stuff is in this one.
I like how Alison sees Toby eating his lunch, which I don't know if you picked up on this. So he is eating his lunch. I'm gonna say, in a standard way, eating his lunch. And then he realises that Alison's looking at him, so he closes his eyes.
Oh, yeah. I feel like I did see it, but I didn't clock it at the time.
To keep that, sort of... Because obviously he was bullshitting before, so it's kind of like...
Again, trying to be this, like, mysterious, like, actor, but,
he's just... We see through you, Toby.
He's no better than Thomas, really. Thomas is way more genuine. Talking of which, as well, there's a bit... it's not really a big scene, but I think it was like slightly before this, where Thomas is... He goes off to his own room and sits down on a chair and like waits for people to come to him to see if he's like upset. And then like obviously Humphrey sees him, or he comes in and he realizes it's not anybody who's going to care.
Well, Humphrey can't care because it's not his head.
Can't see. It reminded me so much of this part did, that Thomas is just like a moody teenager.
I was going to say, yeah, definitely.
I've done this. I know that where I'm like, you're just like, I'm angry, but I need to wait until somebody comes and asks if I'm angry. I just thought it was funny.
So after sort of being made to look a bit of a fool, Mike decides he's going to go for his 10k run.
Yeah.
And Alison continues to be worried about the weight of the floor and if it will hold.
Yeah. I like the Mike trying to show off his fitness and his prowess as well by trying to do a pull up on a gazebo and immediately pulling it down. I thought, I'm
not sure what he was expecting to happen. Really.
I have to give credit to Kyle. It's Kyle, isn't it? Is how you pronounce it. I think he's like so dry in how like, and it's just like, it's that embarrassment of knowing you've just done something, like yep anyway, just like trying to get out for it. He does it quite a lot in Stafflet's Flats as well, like,
which we're also rewatching at the moment.
So we're seeing a lot. But yeah, he has that kind of just like not playing into what's just happened and just like anyway.
He's great.
I just think it's really good. But just that bit did actually probably make me laugh.
Mary's working on her director skills, and Kitty is getting increasingly annoyed that it is taking so long to get to the bedroom scene.
Yes, yeah.
Then we see Mike doing his 10k, but he only gets sort of down the path, I suppose, and then climbs over the fence and falls down whilst sort of trying to cut his journey home. I
feel like he embodies everybody's January at the moment, where they're like, gonna go run in. And then it's like, I can't be bothered.
Definitely. So Mike is back from his run, and he notices the cracks are now showing in the ceiling under the room that they're filming in. So we can see it's getting made worse by the weight of the additional camera. So that like camera on wheels that they've got is like really, really heavy. Alison is also looking tense. I think she's sort of in the room.
Yeah.
And Mike is underneath, so he can see like the cracks in the ceiling. So Mike decides to move one of the massive structural support posts, all on his own, in a matter of seconds. I don't know how heavy they are or how you set them up.
Quite
heavy if they're going to be holding up a ceiling.
Yeah.
Moves it on his own. I thought, okay.
We'll let him off for comedic value.
Yeah.
But I mean, good idea, but not going to last because he's just removed it from another part. Yeah. So.
Just moved the problem.
Yeah.
So the cameraman says that, or the
assistant director
says that they're moving to the closed bedroom scene, which excites Kitty. The captain's good lord when Kitty says she hopes that he has a hairy chest.
I liked as well during the other scenes where the assistant director's like trying to command essentially what's going on, and the captain is trying to mimic him, and so like he's trying to go action at the same time and get into it, which I thought was, I think he's enjoying this way more than he thought he would. Yeah, exactly.
So it cuts back to Julian, and he's still with the hairstylist in the trailer, listening to the radio with her. The captain ushers the ghost away from the bedroom and explains to them that it's a closed set. He calls the cameraman Adam, so we know that his name. I keep calling him cameraman. Assistant director Adam.
No, yeah, you're doing him a disservice.
I know.
I like as well.
Some first name terms.
Yeah. At this point, he's like holding all the ghosts back from going. I thought, well, surely they can just run through him. But obviously, we'd seen earlier that he picks up Humphrey's head and it's physical. So I wonder if they can't just push
go
past
through each other. Yeah,
I don't know if they've done that on purpose to sort of say they can't do that. You could just walk through the wall, as Kitty does later,
As
though,
Kitty
obviously.
does. Yeah, so Toby is getting into character by doing what Robin calls a rain dance. And Mary says that the devil plays his strings, and Pat confirms that he's getting into the zone or getting into his character. But yeah, we see Kitty is snooping on the actors anyway.
I did like his warm-up technique. Didn't he just go like this, basically?
I might try and start doing that, actually. It's like a...
10 minutes before work, just like before you go in the room.
Yeah. Do that. I'm sure if I did that outside the office, everyone would probably call security. She's, yeah. So Mike is jealous of Toby, Alison's free pass. Pat, Robin and Mary want to go onto the closets still, but the captain is still stopping them. But unknowingly to him, Kitty is already in there and she's absolutely having the time of her life. He's unable to stop Fanny from entering.
Yes.
Fanny kind of just pushes past him, doesn't she? When she finds out that the actors are making love in there.
Yeah.
So that is disgusts her greatly.
And I think she thinks that the woman actor is Alison as well, doesn't he?
Does she?
I think so. I'm sure she says Alison, no, or something like that.
Oh, I see.
So I think she thinks it's, yeah.
Oh, missed that bit. So Julian is still listening to the GGs in the trailer with the hairstylist. But I think we realise now that they're hoping on different horses to win at that point.
Yeah, they've got opposite. I wouldn't say opposite horses because
there's multiple horses.
There's a lot of horses.
Different horses to win. So during the scene, Toby/Byron ends up falling through the floor. It kind of reminded me of something that you said the other day. With I think it was when Sweep from Sooty and Sweep falls through the floor and you just see her little legs like dangling.
Is Sooty a girl?
Sweep's a girl.
Sweep, sorry, yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. I don't know actually. I'm not sure.
Sooty maybe is a boy.
Yeah, I didn't know Sweep was a girl.
I don't know why we gender.
Well, yeah, that's true.
They don't need genders. We don't need.
That's true, yeah. But yeah, with her legs like dangling through. Yeah, it's the same thing with Mike just saying stop kicking.
I think I forgot that someone actually falls through the floor.
Yeah,
it kind of frightened me a little bit. I had like a little like when he actually fell through.
I like when he falls through as well. He loses all pretense of this like cool, sophisticated acting. He's just like screaming help.
So Mike is trying to help him, but it keeps cutting back to Martin listening to the horses. So it's just like this like chaotic sort of 20 seconds of and then Toby tries to pull himself up, but ends up grabbing I think the power cable and then trips the electric for the whole estate. So even the radio goes off. I put Martin. I said last episode, I keep calling Julian Martin.
Oh, yeah.
I've written Martin, and I think I said Martin as well. I don't know why. I have absolutely no idea.
It'd be interesting because I know there's a Julian character in the US Ghosts. It'd be hilarious if he's called Martin or something.
But I've never watched it.
I know, but like everybody out there's probably like, no, he's not. He's called James or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yes, please can people that have watched the US Ghosts tell me if there's a Martin in there and if I'm psychic.
If you're mixing it up. Yeah.
Julian is listening to the horses.
Yeah.
Toby ends up grabbing the cable and then Toby ends up falling to the floor with Mike on top of him. And we realise that he fell through the floor as Mike had moved the large pole from that section of the ceiling trying to protect the other side.
Yeah.
So I think Toby's pretty embarrassed by how he acted.
Kind of, because he storms out and says, "Oh, I could have died, and what would you have done then?"
Yeah. And then we see the crew leave, and Mike says it's goodbye to £96,000.
That is quite a lot of money. Yeah.
But Alison does say she won £100 after a tip from a ghost on the horses. And then I think Mike confuses ghosts with time travellers.
Yeah. That he thinks he's
been watching mistake to make.
He's been watching too much Back to the Future. That's what's happened. did you get the last bit of the episode as well, where they realise, because Thomas says he's going to drown himself earlier on.
Oh, see, they discuss how Thomas will be glad that the film crew have gone, and maybe someone should tell him, and then we cut to Thomas in the lake, but I don't really understand the significance of that.
He said he was like sick of it all and was going to drown himself in the lake, and so he's just there bobbing in the lake.
Yeah.
Do you think, could he get wet as a ghost? Like, is that possible, or is he...
No.
Yeah, he's going to come out bone dry.
I guess.
Yeah. The physics of that is, who knows? If he died in the water, he'd probably be a wet ghost. Cause
that's interesting. Yeah. Just constantly walking around soaking wet.
That must be a nightmare.
That must be horrendous. Yeah. God.
Anyway.
Wow. What did you think?
It was fun. It was a fun episode, and I enjoyed it for what it was. I liked that the plot was just focused this time, so it was just the one story, and it was just how the ghosts interacted with that. And you did see a lot of the ghosts' roles evolving in this. So, like, Mary was like had no idea what a camera was at the start, and then ends up directing, as I mentioned. The captain didn't want to have anything to do with it, and then was fully on board with it, and all the different stuff there. So I like that. But like the plot doesn't really move forward. They almost have 97 grand, and then it's gone at the end, so they're back to square one. So it kind of just goes back to the beginning. So, but that's kind of what happens throughout the rest of the series, I guess. But with other episodes, you kind of learn backstories and stuff like that, and all of the characters evolve a bit more. So not a lot happens in this. So it's one of those where I'm like, if you could skip one of this series, probably this one. Like, to be honest, there's not that many episodes, so I don't think you need to skip episodes. But this one, I'd say, if you want to skip one, you probably could. But it was okay. It was fun. I enjoyed it for what it was. So, how about yourself?
Yeah, I thought I'd just put average episode. I really feel that it was just the last episode repeated. And I don't feel like I felt that as much with episodes that I know of going forward. Not sure. It's a tricky one because I didn't particularly enjoy the last episode that much, apart from the bit where we explored Pat's death. And this episode even lacked that kind of like interest. Yeah, exactly. So I suppose, I thought it was a good episode. There was bits that made me laugh, and don't get me wrong, like every episode is entertaining. So I gave it quite a low.
Okay, yeah.
I gave it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I don't think that's low if you're like, hey, it was okay.
But again, and I think I've said this for like every episode so far, we're 4 in, and I think I said it for every single one. I think I really enjoy the episode as a whole, and like 5 out of 10 is probably quite a low score. But it's because I know that there's better episodes. Yeah. So I don't want to like say, oh, it's a 7 or an 8.
And everyone's a 7 or an 8.
Yeah, so I think I'm looking at it. Obviously, this we've people, listeners know that this is our second watch of the show. So I think with that in mind and looking at the bigger picture, that's what I'm trying to do with my scores. So I'd say 5 out of 10. But what was the IMDb? Do you know?
Well, I gave it a 6 as well.
Oh, sorry. Don't care what you gave it.
Yeah. Similar to what you said, I can't. I think it was better for me. It was better than a 5, but a 6 is probably all I'd give it. It's not much better. The audience score on IMDb was a 7.8, which I thought was quite high.
But that was the same as last week.
763 people. That was.
Was it a 7.6 or something last week?
I can double check. It was. Sorry, this is live production going on here. It was a 7.8. Yeah, so it was exactly the same.
I can understand though, like as a thing on its own, I can understand why someone might rate that 7 out of 10. Yeah. But as I said, I'm looking at it from
the series as a whole. Yeah.
Where I know that like there's like better episodes coming up that are like definitely 10 out of 10s for me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So I'm just as much as I do appreciate like this, but it's the first series.
Yeah, exactly.
It's 4 episodes in of like a 5 series sort of sitcom. So,
and I think with any TV series that has like more than 12 episodes or something like that, there tends to be some that are kind of lost in the shuffle of like you know what I mean, like where it's just like it was okay, but you know.
Yeah.
So this week on our haunted locations, we still need a good name for it, don't we? Haunted locations is rubbish. So we've had a castle, we've had a manor house, we've had a prison. I'm now going for an outdoor location, a forest.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But I thought we agreed that it was going to be buildings.
Well, what is a building is, made of a material.
No, I'm not having that.
Look, I just thought it was cool. I had a look at what was a haunted location, and Cannock Chase came up as quite a haunted location. So yeah, I'm doing taking a look into what's happening in Cannock Chase at the moment. Okay. At the moment. It's referred to locally as the Chase. It's located in Staffordshire. And it was formerly a royal forest or a kingswood, which is just a fancy term for the king looked after it and might have used it for hunting and stuff like that. There's like special laws to protect it, basically.
Okay.
It's got a mixture of different trees as a forest, well, I suppose. Different types of like woodland and heathland and stuff like that. It's got a lake, and it does even have stuff like coal mining and industry there as well. And it's also was designated as an area of outstanding natural beauty, which is apparently a thing, like an award to a place. And it's the smallest area in the UK to be designated this. It's home to fallow deer, rare birds, and also contains Shugborough Hall, which we've been to actually.
We have.
Which is the ancestral home of the Earls of Lichfield. And at the highest point of the Chase is also the Castle Ring, which is an old Iron Age hill fort. So, before we get into the ghosts, just because this, again, whenever you have ghosts and stuff like that, there's dark histories and stuff like that around this. So, a notable thing, it's not really in the long ago past. So this was in the 60s, is Cannock Chase, the Cannock Chase murders, where the remains of 3 young girls were found in Cannock Chase.
Oh, wow.
And a man from Warsaw was convicted of their murders in 1968. So it does have a bit of a grisly history in the recent past anyway. So from the 1970s onwards, there's been a lot of different paranormal sightings, including black-eyed children, black dogs, which are apparently demons, werewolves.
What?
British big cats, which are phantom cats.
Oh, nice. I like big cats.
UFOs.
What?
And even a Bigfoot.
No.
So there's a lot.
A Bigfoot. I thought there was only one.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he migrates.
The Bigfoot.
He's on his holidays.
To Cannock Chase.
Yeah. So, funnily enough, there's a lack of conclusive evidence around these, so it's considered all a part of local folklore. I don't want to concentrate on the others because that's a bit X-Files with that one, so we might as well just stick to the ghosts. So the legend of the black-eyed children, or the black-eyed child, I think is it's only one that they sort of mention, is that this all started in the 70s. A young couple reported to have encountered this young child in the woods.
Oh, wow.
And according to the story, the child appeared suddenly and asked for help in a childlike voice, as you would as a child.
That'd be so creepy.
Those that have encountered her reported feeling a sense of overwhelming fear and unease, often before they've seen her face. And those that have seen her say that she's dressed in old-fashioned clothing and has completely black eyes with no visible white or iris.
I wonder why.
Not a clue, but apparently it's quite a common ghost story these are. Like, there's a lot in America as well, Black-Eyed Children. I remember there was a comic book like about this that like turns it into a bigger story of like what they are. But yeah, it's like a common folklore thing. But yeah, Cannock Chase has got its own. People who have claimed to have encountered her have reported feeling as though they've been hypnotized or controlled. And after encountering her, some have reported experiencing physical symptoms such as nausea and headaches. Wow. Many eyewitnesses say that the girl isn't of this world, as the way she moves is unlike any human. She seems to transport from tree to tree. And a recent encounter was in 2021 when a teenage couple known as Kylie and Ben, which I liked, they don't have a last name, and apparently their names were changed because they were too young to be reported on at the time. They were camping in Cannock Chase, which is illegal. You're not meant to camp there. In the this is why I'm kind of like, I don't know if I should trust their story 100%, but anyway.
Well, why would they lie? They'd be getting themselves into trouble, wouldn't
they? True. But in the Birches Valley in Cannock Chase, around midnight, they heard something moving around outside the tent, thinking it was a deer. They stayed still and tried not to spook it, but then they started hearing footsteps, so they unzipped the tent to take a look. Both campers heard the unmistakable sound of a small child giggling, so they turned on their torches, lighting up the shadowy woodland to try and find the source. Ben saw it first, running from tree to tree, hiding itself behind the trunks and occasionally peering out towards the couple before first stepping out to the clearing in front of them. Wow. In a report from Staffordshire Live, Kylie said, "I was absolutely terrified. I'd read the stories in the news about the black-eyed child, but it wasn't until the thing stood in front of me that I could quite believe them. I knew instantly that we were dealing with the real thing, because it moved in ways humans simply cannot move. It was like it could teleport from one place to another when it was moving around and hiding behind the trees." Ben added, "I was shining my torch right at her, and she was just stood there staring at us with her head slightly dipped. That's when the giggling started to get louder and louder."
What?
It really sounded like it was coming from all around us, even though I could see she was right in front of us. It was really disorientating for a few seconds. Then she bent down for a moment, as if adjusting her shoes, stood back up, and ran off down a nearby path through a dense section of trees. The frightened pair huddled together in a tent, waiting for the sun to rise. When they emerged at 7 a.m, they found piles of stones evenly arranged around the perimeters of the tent.
What?
And strange stick formations hanging from the trees, which looked like dream catchers. Slightly shaken, they packed up and started the 50-minute walk back to Ben's car. Suddenly, Kylie spotted a small child with black eyes peering back at her from behind an oak tree and screamed. Ben said he shouted, "Leave us alone," as the pair ran off towards his vehicle.
Oh my god, that's terrifying.
It is terrifying.
There's no chance on this green earth that I would stay there for the rest of the night. I would take my chances
in the woods,
and I'd run my little ass straight across straight to the car.
Yeah.
Like, there is no way.
Yeah.
No way. I'd leave the tent and just hope it was still there the next day.
That's true. I mean, I have my skepticism about it because they seem to be quoting their stories that other people have mentioned word for word about it teleporting around. Maybe it's a common occurrence, or maybe
it reminded me. Do you remember that game that we played?
Until Dawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like the Wendigos.
Yeah.
They were kind of like that, weren't they? Where they were like, sort of like, they would jump like from thing to thing. But you like sort of, they wouldn't move in like a natural human way. They were kind of like
like a stick insect or something. It kind of
reminds me of that, but that is creepy.
So, author Lee Brickley, who's investigated Cannock Chase for a decade, claims to have had an encounter with the black-eyed child in 2018. She appeared about 100 metres in front of me. He said she stared right at me for about 30 seconds, then vanished without a trace. Wow. He also claims, there's some other stuff later on about this, but he claims to have witnessed someone in an old soldier's uniform walking into the German war cemetery, only to discover after following them inside that they disappeared. When asked why he believes there is so much supernatural activity at the site, Lee said, "I tend to believe that Cannock Chase is somewhat of a paranormal portal area where beings and entities from the next world can migrate into our own. I believe the woods are haunted with many spirits of the dead, but there is also a lot of monster sightings that happen here. I think those creatures come from another, much darker place." So, Lee thinks that Cannock Chase is a portal to another world.
God, wow.
It reminds me of in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the town is over what they call a hellmouth, and that's why all these monsters keep coming out, because they're it's over a place where it's. So maybe that's Cannock Chase. Unbelievably, is the portal to hell or something.
It's a lot to think about.
Well, yeah. One of the other stories there is this Castle Ring hill fort. So it's a Celtic hill fort that dates back to 500 BC and has a sinister past as a Celtic tribe known as the Cornevi. Used to call it home, and they're believed to have performed rituals and blood sacrifices on the hill. I mean, there's no evidence that are found from that, so that might be somebody just telling scary stories, but anyway. The hill is believed to be a supernatural portal. So again, it starts getting a bit wild on this bit, because it says, all around the area there have been sightings of werewolves, a pig man, which I don't know what that is. I guess
it doesn't the tin.
Like a pig, demonic black dogs, UFOs, Slender Man, which is a fairly new one. And even Bigfoot again, so he makes it back into the rumours. Wow. And then finally, just some other ghost sightings. Apparently, the first Marquess of Anglesey, Henry Paget, has been seen riding round the grounds or the eastern edge of Cannock Chase, as it used to be his personal hunting ground, and he's often seen on horseback with ghostly hounds. A lot of World War I and II soldier ghosts are seen. There was a large military camp which was home to the New Zealand Rifle Brigade, and it was also used as a prisoner of war hospital during the wars, and over 500 burials of... sorry, I think it was 5,000. I think I've missed a zero there.
Wow.
No, right. 5,000 burials of German and Austrian soldiers during World War I, and I'm not sure World War II, possibly. So there's also, soldier ghosts, and there's no real other stories to this. They just kind of list them out. Some other ones that they've seen is an old man with a cane who's thought to be the former gamekeeper, a bedraggled woman who wanders around confused, a parachutist who's perpetually falling from the sky, which that's the worst way to be a ghost, surely. A phantom cyclist who disappears before onlookers' eyes, and a young, lost and confused looking monk as well. So a lot going on in Cannock Chase.
There is, blimey.
You run into a ghost of a parachutist or the Slender Man. So
wow.
Anyway, but yeah, so that's Cannock Chase.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. I guess that's the end of the episode this week then.
Yeah.
So if you want to get in touch with us, you can contact us on... I always forget where we have our contacts now. Instagram.
So there's a link in the Instagram bio.
Yes.
That takes you to where you can listen. But obviously, if you're listening to this, I'm going to assume you're going to be able to listen to the rest of the other episodes.
Yeah.
So contact us on Instagram, email us, comment on YouTube.
All the details are in the notes on the podcast as well, so you can see that if you scroll down.
Definitely. Look forward to hearing from you, and we will see you next week.
Bye. I guess we might as well just get into this episode, haven't we?
Yeah. It's the same, so I guess we might as well get into the episode. every week.
Yeah.
That's our slide.
You don't
Anyway,
know.
sorry.
There's no. You don't need a good. What would you do? You need a catchphrase.
I don't know. Maybe we'll have to think of one.